right, everybody, welcome to Fantasy Football's second season. Our playoff contests are a great way to keep the fun going for another 5 weeks or so, and we're here to help you sort out the best ways to cash in. So, guys, let's get into the Empire. But first off, we spent the entire season talking about it. The FFPC contest, the NFFC contest, Fantasy Pros and main events on the FFPC side, the Rotowire and Primetime on the NFFC side. So let's take a quick look at the winners of those contests and just kind of talk about what we saw there. We'll be real fast on this because we want to get into the playoff stuff because we got a ton for you. On the FFPC side, we had the main event winner was a team called Carizard. He scored the final 3 weeks 192.45, 201, and 215.5. So 3 very, very solid weeks. His team the last week, he had Joe Burrow, Jerome Ford, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, Mark Andrews, Adam Thielen, T. Higgins, Jake Elliott, and the Saints defense. So kind of an interesting team there. Obviously, he had, a couple players he probably wasn't playing all 3 weeks there, and Thielen and Ford. But, having the depth to be able to make some pivots like that definitely paid off for him. And as we talked about in our last show, we thought Burrow might be a league-winning type, and for sure, there he is on top. So nice job by Carizard. Really, really nice win. And on the Fantasy Pro side, it was a team called Melberg 65. Scores of 211.85, 226.15, and 191.35. His team, definitely a different team. Almost nothing in common, or actually nothing in common with the main event winner. We had Baker Mayfield at quarterback, Barkley and Aaron Jones at running back, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver, George Kittle at tight end, Jalen Warren and Devontae Adams in the flex, and then Chase McLaughlin in the Eagles defense were his kicker and defense. So nice job by him. It's not too often you see completely different winners, as far as like what their rosters are. And I want to give out a shout out to the Toilet Bowl winner of the Fantasy Pros contest, who scored 211, 225.2, and 216.95 the last 3 weeks. If he would have qualified, he would have won the whole thing.
That's sickening.
That'll
make you sickening.
The winner of Fantasy Pros, the final 3 weeks, he totaled 629.5. This Toilet Bowl winner, 653.11.
To have 3 playoff weeks all over 200 is very rare. You could drop 2 weeks where you get over 200 and kill it, but 3 weeks of all over 200, that's some crazy consistency right there.
Yeah, that was pretty wild stuff for sure. So I thought that was really interesting. All right, what do you guys got on the NFFC side?
You want to go first, Chris?
Yeah, I'll take it real quick. I'm going to talk about the NFFC Primetime Champion, but before I do that, shout out to our guys here. Nelson finishing 5th overall in the NFFC Online Championship this year. Hell of a run for you, buddy. And Matty Moe, 7th overall in the NFFC Primetime. So, guys, hell of a run right there. I was rooting for both of you. You guys came up a little short, but nice runs. Anytime you can get a top 10 overall finish, real good. Dan, you were there going into the last week. You fell off a little bit, but you had a great run as well.
Yeah, the last week just didn't go quite as well as planned, but the moves we talked about on this show, those worked out for me. So they were the right moves. Just the lineup didn't have enough punch for that last week. So that's the way it goes. I finished in 33rd.
If I could say something real quick, the one thing with the team that finished in 7th, I know in fantasy football we hear this all the time. If your first round pick gets injured, you're done. That team was my last one in Vegas. My last NFFC team I drafted. I took Rashee Rice 11th overall, and that
What
team
could have been?
in the second half just kept putting up like 170 or more every week. So, it's not just one player all the time. I mean, it's not something you want. You never want your first round pick going down. But
Yeah, and I saw that with a lot of championship teams, a lot of private league teams that a lot of winning rosters just had 3 or 4 really good picks that were good all year, and then like their 8th round picks through 20th did nothing. So it was enough to carry them. So not only that, Matt, you can overcome injuries, but you can miss a lot of picks and still come away with a really strong team if you have a good core. But anyway, listen, shout out to a friend of ours who won the NFFC championship, Mark Cerebro and Jason Emma, NFBC Hall of Famer, those two. They pulled out an unbelievable feat this year. They scored 262 points in the final week of the NFFC Primetime, overcoming Randy Meckles, who is a well-known high-stakes volume player. He had a great team. He looked good going into the final week. Mark and Jason Emma come out from 46th place in the last week all the way up to pass and win the overall championship on Monday night with the combination of Gibbs and St. Brown. They were down 19 points in the fourth quarter. They get the St. Brown touchdown. Then they get the Gibbs miracle 30-yard touchdown around the corner to pass them and win by a point and a half. This is unbelievable because last year, Jeff Kozlowski came from 46th place the final week and dropped a 250 or 60 and won the overall championship. So the moral of the story here is next year, get yourself in 46th place going into the final week and win the overall championship. Mark's team, real quick, he had the Baker to Mike Evans dream combination the final week. Of course, he had to have T. Higgins in that 41 points. We mentioned the Lions combo with Gibbs and St. Brown. Derrick Henry was his running back. Trey McBride dropping the 30 at tight end. I think you needed Trey McBride. And the Philadelphia Eagles defense giving him 23 points. So overall, an unbelievable run. He's in New York every year. We get to hang out with him. This year we will be celebrating a championship for him when he gets back to New York. So shout out to Cerebro and Emma. Primetime
solid dudes.
Yeah, very knowledgeable. And it's just a crazy story. So that's that.
I do want to shout out to Randy Meckles. He's a high volume drafter, and I'm in a ton of his drafts. I don't know him personally, but I mean, I feel for him because he's in 8th place going into the final week. So he moved up 7 spots, finished 2nd overall. If you told me that my team's in 8th place and I'm going to score a 223, I'm going to tell you that my chances are pretty good on catching that first place team and finishing 1st overall. So, I mean, that is just mind boggling that the 2nd and 3rd place teams, Scott Stoffer scored 230. So those are some big scores in the final week. And that just kind of shows like that 261 is such a monster score from Mark and Jason.
It was such a high scoring championship week, guys. And I didn't expect that because the games were so scattered around. That Sunday looked so stale. That week 17 slate of early games, it was 6 games. They all looked shitty, but they all wind up producing. There was superstar scores from the big name players straight through the day. And that's what got all these scores. You look at those week 17 scores, there was a lot of guys that went over 200. So there was a lot of changing in the overall standings all up and down the board. Matt, where did you come from that final week?
I think, where was I? I was pretty far back. I went into the final night. I know I was 16th. Maybe I was.
You were 30. You moved up
31st?
34 spots.
Yeah,
Okay.
see? So like,
Yeah, so you were in 41st.
I put up 226, I think, something like that, and
yeah,
you know
another
that's
one.
still like 35 points behind Gecko and
Cerebro,
Evan.
Yeah.
So
Which
you're
is
like,
crazy, but a
Yeah.
226 should lead the contest for the week. You
Yeah.
probably scored like the fifth amount of points. Yeah.
But
So anyway,
yeah,
shout
no,
out to them. Nelson, take it away for the online championship.
All right, so I'm doing the online championship. I had a rooting interest this year there. I had a team that was in second place going into the final week, so I had a sweat. And what ended up happening was, my team just, I'm going to speak first about my team and then move on to the winner. But my team just didn't show up that final week. I had CD on the team. He tapped out. I thought it was a good thing that he tapped out on Thursday because I had Keenan Allen going. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put Keenan in. The debate for me was Jameson versus Keenan, but Malik Neighbors, which was also on my team, was basically a game time decision. And I felt like I needed to leave myself an out in case he didn't play. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to play Keenan and wait on it. And if Neighbors doesn't play, I can always play Jameson. But if I had played Jameson over Keenan Allen, I would have finished second overall, which obviously is a little bit more coin, and it is the first loser. But second overall, that would be 2 out of 3 years that I'd be finishing second overall in a tournament, because 2 years ago in the Primetime, I finished second overall. Last year, I finished third overall in the Primetime, and this year, fifth overall in the online championship. So I've been lucky enough to have, dogs in the race here in the final week. So that's always fun.
It's always a great sweat. Nelson, real quick, that Jameson way, I forgot completely about. I remember talking on the show 2 weeks ago about your Keenan Allen, Jameson Williams, decision. I forgot now that you bring it back up that you had JMO and he goes and has that really nice game on a Monday night, 24 points. Mm-hmm. You finishing the fact that it would have made you finish second and not first. Does it at least let you sleep a little better?
100%.
100%. Because I'm thinking like, if you make that, and I thought you were just about to tell us if you play Jameson over Allen, you would have won the whole thing. That would have, I don't know how you would have been here right now.
Yeah, no, I would. Yeah.
I had JMO going on my team as well, and
did,
selfishly, I really wanted 6, so I could have had a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as my top finishes, but I'll take 7.
I remember Brett LeBar we thought 2 weeks ago Brett LeBar for that online championship was going to cakewalk, and that was basically the only guy that you were going to try and chase down. Nelson, he didn't even win it. He fell out of the top 5, I believe. So he had a disastrous week 17. He was looking like a heavy favorite. So like I said, week 17 chaos in all these events.
Yeah. So what ended up happening with him was he had the Burrow Chase combo, and obviously it was Higgins that had the month. Chase put up 19. So yeah. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's still a good job by Chase. Too. But he had an off week. He had Keenan Allen and he had Devontae Adams that were carrying him. So they had down weeks. He had to play Josh Downs in the flex down week. And then he had Gibbs and Kittle going on Monday night. So he had a few guys definitely put up kind of clunkers that ended up hurting him. But he finished third overall and had a great year. But the winner of the online championship was Philip Brubaker. I'm not I don't know him personally, but he put up 216. He was in 6th place. So he was right there with us. So he was in the conversation. 6th place, moved up 6 spots with a 216, and he finished comfortably in first. So he scored a 779 total, and the second place team, David Webb, finished at 766. So he had a nice 13-point lead, and his team was Lamar Jackson, James Conner, who put up a dud on Saturday, basically played a couple of snaps and tapped out. So he had to be sick to his stomach, from that. And then he had Jalen Warren, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, Brian Thomas, Kelsey, T. Higgins. And then he had Dolphins kicker and Chargers defense, all scoring very well, double-digit scores. So the Connor one was, he got 20 plus from basically all his guys in his lineup, except for Connor. Warren put up 16 the final week, and he took it down. So he had a really good team, and from what I can tell, just looking at like all these teams like in the top 10, it was basically you needed, and I always say this, that I feel like it's always like a couple of quarterbacks, wide receiver combos that you need in the shootout. Yeah. And this year it was Burrow Higgins, Lamar naked, or it was Jaden Daniels. Those were the guys that put up the big scores.
And if you had the balls to start Zach Ertz along with Jaden Daniels, that would have worked out very well too.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So don't forget Mike Evans. Did Baker put up decent numbers the first?
Baker put up a monster. Yeah.
No. Week 17 he put up 49. I know that, but I'm trying to think back to the first two playoff weeks. What his numbers were. I feel like he was consistent. And that Tampa offense, Bucky, Baker, Mike Evans, they were huge, along with Brian Thomas.
Another one was
fantasy
Goff.
Playoffs.
Goff was a consistent scorer too in the shootout.
That's true, and Gibbs. So like that combination of all those guys, as many players as you had out of those 7 to 10 guys right there that we just talked about, that's what won everybody the money.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that I found interesting, I looked at it just quickly, but it seemed like you needed a premium tight end. That, at least in the online championship, I didn't look at the Primetime too closely because I really didn't have a team in the race over there. But in the online championship, you're talking Kelsey. Second place team had Laporta. So after as bad of a season as you can have, your sophomore year, Laporta kind of came on at the end of the season, right? George Kittle, okay, he was, he wasn't Laporta, Kelsey, he wasn't drafted that high, but he was still drafted pretty high, right? And you had,
there it is.
Let's see, I had Kittle on my team, okay. And you had Trey McBride, another highly drafted tight end.
So Trey McBride, real quick, had that crazy playoff run, right? He had a huge week 15. Then he bombed out in week 16. And then he had the monster week 17. So overall, I think he had 2 30-point plus games, or at least high 20s. And then he sandwiched it with a 3 or a 4 in week in the middle.
I think he had 5 points in the middle. Yeah. I had him on my 7th place team.
Yes. So you still needed Trey McBride. I know Bowers had one bad game in there too, but I think what you're saying, Nelson, it's true. I think you needed one of the elite quarterbacks and one of the elite tight ends, And
Jaden Daniels and Goff went late enough in drafts.
Daniels was huge. He had 47 and 40 the last two. I forget what he had week 15, but he was my quarterback.
To be honest, you didn't need elite quarterback. Burrow, Daniels, and Goff all went pretty, reasonable in drafts.
You're right. I'm thinking more along the lines of name wise, like Burrow and Lamar. You needed those two, and I'm lumping Goff in, but I'm not thinking in terms of like drafting wise. I'm thinking, but you're right, 100%. Daniels and Goff were not highly drafted, and either was Burrow. But those were the 4 names.
Basically what you're saying, Chris, is that you couldn't finish in the top 10 with some scrub quarterback. Like you couldn't have like a monster team and have like Drake May or
CJ Stroud.
Correct.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like a middle of the road quarterback that gets you there.
We were ranking Daniels as a top 5 quarterback the last month of the season. You know, like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some quarterback came out of nowhere and everything. But yeah, preseason, sure.
Just real quick, just because we mentioned quarterbacks, the CJ Stroud and the Bryce Young, how like going into this year and how ending this year is just such a flip.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, the Panthers have their quarterback now. It clicked. You can actually, when you're watching the Panthers and Bryce Young this last month and a half, you could see it just finally all came together for the kid. The game slowed down for him, everything. So now they have their quarterback. I'll be drafting Bryce Young on my fantasy teams next year. I'm hoping that they put more talent around him. They got the backfield guy for him. That's an offense on the rise. That's going to be one of those offenses and quarterbacks next year in fantasy drafts in the summer that we're all like, oh, sneaky stack, Panthers, you know, Bryce Young probably be going off the board as the QB 10 to 15 like that. He's going to be that guy.
Wait until they end up with Tet McMillan on that team too.
That'd be sick.
No doubt about it. All right, guys, let's we're going to take a quick second, do a quick ad, and then we're going to get into the playoff challenges. So I know everybody's looking forward to that. Should be a lot of fun, but here we go.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him, draft him, draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Or, of course, if you're looking for an even better promo code, you can use DAN, D-A-N. That'll get it done for you. And I gotta say, man, just real quick on that Fast Draft, I did the pick 6. You just basically pick any 6 players. It's not a draft. It's not anything. I did 3 $5 entries, came away with $90. So it's super fun. It's not difficult. It takes like 2 minutes to do 3 entries. So a lot of fun, really fast. If you've never done it before, this might be a good week to experiment. So they'll have some contests going for the playoffs as well. All right, let's get into the game previews, though. Let's before we start talking about the contests, we're going to start with the FFPC. But I just want to go through and get everybody's ideas on, how they see these games working out, because that's going to kind of inform what we do on both of these contest entries. Let's start with Chargers at Texans. Nelson, who do you think's going to win? What's your level of confidence?
Level of confidence would be 55% Chargers, 45% Texans is kind of where I'm at. I don't like the way the Texans are playing going into the playoffs. I usually factor that in how like I weight the matchups and how I predict the players advancing. I do like how the Chargers are playing, so I think the momentum is on their side, even though they got to go to Houston.
All right, sounds good. Chris, what do you got?
I'd probably be right there, like with Nelson, like 55-45. I think this could be definitely the upset. I mean, even though the Chargers are 3-point favorites, I think this game and one other in the NFC that we'll talk about are the 2 games that I could definitely see changing playoff contest and the breakdown of all the games. So I'm going to call for a Houston upset, honestly, in this one. call it a hunch, but I think Houston sneaks out a win versus the Chargers.
All right, here you go. Matt, what do you got?
I'm going to go like 75, 80% Chargers here. I really like this team. I like the way they're entering. I love the head coach. And I think they're probably the scariest team in the AFC.
Wow.
You know, I really think, you know, they're going to cause some headway.
All right, there you go. And I'm also on the Chargers. I'd put it at about 65% or so. You know, you guys kind of went through the logic on it. So looks like Chargers is probably our pick there overall. Steelers at Ravens. Nelson, what do you got there?
I mean, listen, there's always the possibility that the Ravens, for whatever reason, come out flat, and there's upset potential. Pittsburgh can be a little bit scary because of their defense, and if Wilson all of a sudden is connecting on a couple of long balls to Pickens, if Arthur Smith decides to actually use them. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna say the Ravens hands down, you know, takes this game. So I have very little confidence that Pittsburgh, especially when they played each other just 2 weeks ago, and Ravens handled that game pretty easily.
Yep. All right, Chris.
Yeah, listen, I'm a little surprised at the line. I mean, these two are division rivals, and for the line to be the highest of the week at 10, I didn't expect to see that. I know the Steelers are ice cold. They've lost 4 in a row. They look like they're falling apart. George Pickens is blowing up the locker room over there. So maybe factoring all that in, I think, I still picking the Ravens here. But I think the biggest factor here is, the one player that I didn't think they could afford to lose as you came into the playoffs here was Zay Flowers. And it seems like Zay Flowers is no more than 50-50 to play here in this game. And what's this passing game going to look like if the Steelers get up on them 10-0? That Steeler defense could show up for 60 minutes. And this could be a potential upset. I wouldn't be shocked if Pittsburgh pulled it off, but I still think Lamar can't go out in the first round. I'm picking the Ravens here, but within the number.
Yeah, I'm with Chris pretty much on what he said. I think the Steelers, as bad as they've looked, they always seem to play them tough, and you got to be, but I look at I think Pickens has a bounce back game in this. I really do. I'm not a big Pickens guy, but I think he's going to make a bounce back. I think the key guy for the Steelers this week is Calvin Austin. He needs to be involved. He's a way that they can keep putting points on and beat that secondary.
Yep, makes sense. I'm also gonna weigh in on the Ravens side here. I think the Steelers look like a team that's in pretty much disarray. I mean, I would take the Steelers in the points, but taking the Steelers to win it outright is a bridge too far for me. I guess what I would say on this game, since we're all pretty solidly on the Ravens is being the winner. If you want to go contrarian on one of your playoff entries, picking the Ravens to go out in the first round and the Steelers to get at least 2 games, that's probably going to differentiate you from about 98% or more of everybody out there. So do what you will with that information. Broncos at Bills. Nelson, what you got?
This is the game that I don't like, only because everything points to Buffalo handling business and having no issue, but they're calling for snow, and I feel like that's a neutralizer from when you have a superior team taking on a lesser team is weather, because that becomes unpredictable, and then it invites more variance into the game. So Denver's playing well, and they're kind of like they're a scary team because, again, when I look at these playoff teams, I look at the teams who's got a defense, who can stop, either do it very well, either stop the run or stop the pass, and what does the offense look like? And I feel like, obviously, you have the experience with a coach with Peyton, but Bo Nix is a rookie, so that hurts them. But Buffalo should win this, pretty easily. I just don't like the weather factor because, like I said, I think that opens up, a way for Denver to like pull an upset. And I wouldn't say every year, but every so often we get a weird upset, like last year, the Packers and Cowboys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much turned everything upside down. So I think there's a possibility there, but you would have to do quite a few entries, I think, in these playoff contests to basically fade Buffalo and like Josh Allen, Cook, those guys, and go like, either full fade or you go like kicker and you throw in like Sutton, I guess, into a lineup and hope that he gets a couple of games, that type of thing. So I'm looking at it just more from like a game theory perspective of trying to, do something a little more contrarian than what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, and I think the Broncos are coming in hot. Their offense is clicking. It's probably one of those teams Buffalo didn't want to see in the first round, but at the same time, this isn't a game that the Broncos should win, or when you're looking at the NFL perspective. Okay, this is an experienced Bills team at home. They've been in the playoffs for years. Josh Allen's not losing this game at home. You got a rookie quarterback in Knicks with a young team in Denver. They should be happy that they just got, into the playoffs. They got some experience here this year with a playoff game, and then they build on it. That's the way you see it in the NFL. A young team gets in, they take their lumps. Next year, they maybe move up to, a higher seed and have a better chance of winning the game. This isn't a game that the Bills can lose at home. Their offense is set up perfectly where there's not a wide receiver that Surtain could cancel out here. Allen will spread it all around. James Cook and the guys, they'll run the ball to death in this game. Bills will win this game.
Chris, I think you made a great point about the Bills not having that number one wide receiver they have to rely on, where Surtain could take him out, and then what's going to happen. The weather doesn't scare me here. I think Allen's pretty dynamic. He thrives in this. But as far as the number goes, I'm a little worried about that. I think the Broncos will give them a fight. The scariest thing is Marvin Mims and how he's coming on, and even on a special teams level. He could return one as well. So the Marvin Mims factor is what really scares me here. I'm going to hope my Bills just get the win and get on to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Broncos have a puncher's chance, but this should be a Bills win. They're also very good at playing in the snow. They're a much more battle-tested team. The Broncos are just kind of figuring it out. I think the playoff experience is probably just going to win the day here.
I just think that, I'll tell you guys real quick from a betting perspective here. When these lines came out, the Bills were laying 9, the Ravens were 9.5. I immediately 2-game teased the Bills and the Ravens to under 3. I got them at 2.5 and 2. It's just based on I can't see Allen and Lamar getting bounced in the first round. Each year that grows, that each of these two quarterbacks don't get to the Super Bowl and win it, is just more and more knocks on their career. Lamar went out early last year. Allen failed again. The two teams that they're playing are inferior to them. They're both at home. I'll lay that every day. Both of them to win by at least a field goal at home. Allen and Lamar. Give me the two of them.
Yeah, Chris, like you said, you jumped on that. My tease when the lines first came out, I got the Chargers plus 6.5. Bills plus 1.5, and Ravens plus 0.5. I did a 3-team.
Okay.
There you go. All right, Packers at Eagles. What you got, Nelson?
This line is weird to me, and I understand very right. So
yeah.
I'm looking at this, and I'm like, man, if it was a foregone conclusion that Hurts is playing, I feel like this line should be more like 8 or 9, perhaps.
You nailed it, Nelson.
It
You,
being
you nailed that. I think that's why the line is that low right now, right? I think Vegas is scared that Hurts hasn't passed the concussion protocol. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. No, it just I thought it was a foregone conclusion that Hertz would get cleared, nothing going on, nothing serious, and he'd be good to go. For him not to be cleared, we don't have to worry until Wednesday. I think if he doesn't get cleared Wednesday, then we're not out of the woods, and this could be an issue. But I am worried about that line because Vegas, at the end of the day, they're very sharp, right? So why are they opening this up at 4.5? Like this line, like I said, should be at minimum should be like -8, and it's 4.5. So I actually think, and I'm not trying to create drama on the show, but I actually think there's a chance here that Hertz doesn't play. And if that happens, like, what do we got going on here? Because Pickett's hurt too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you nailed it on the head right there. I think I was about to put them in all my money line parlays. The Eagles. I was like, why is this line only 4.5? So maybe I should jump on it real fast. Then it actually went down to 4 on one of my sites last night. I said, wow, this is going the opposite direction of what I thought. And then realizing that, all right, maybe this is all because of Hurts, and it has to be. I think this line, you could play it two ways. If you're want to get ahead of the game here and jump the gun, and you're expecting Hurts to get cleared and play, this line's going to go up to 6.5. The Packers are falling apart on the other side. They lose Watson. Jordan Love sucks. His hand is banged up. I think the Packers are that team that's going in the wrong direction heading into the playoffs here. And the Eagles were my best play coming in. When I saw the matchups, I said, Eagles are going to roll in this game 10+. But now it's all surrounding Jalen Hurts' injury status and all playoff pools and playoff drafts and everything is hanging by this one decision here.
It gets interesting because I think the Eagles still, even with McKee at quarterback and running the ball with Saquon in it, I think they can still pull this game out. I don't, I'm not saying that the Packers now are win this game without Hurts at quarterback, but it's just interesting, like how you go and set up your playoff contests and everything.
Yeah, this one's a big swing because if the Eagles lose, it really changes the dynamic of the whole NFC side. So, you gotta look at this one a little bit carefully. And I know Harry Snowman was asking why do you start from the bottom? He always starts from the top. This is exactly why I usually start from the bottom, because I want to be able to look at all these scenarios and decide how do I feel about this? What are the what happens if the Packers upset the Eagles? And see how the playoffs unfold that way. So, interesting one. But what do you got on this one, Matt?
It is tough in that aspect. I think the Watson injury for the Packers, it's not his production. It's just the fact that he can stretch the field alone that's really going to hurt them. I'm with everybody else here. I think you got to like the Eagles. Though I'm not huge on the Eagles going deep. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think the Packers definitely have a solid chance to win this game. I think people are counting them out. I can't think of a time before when the NFC East champion counted out the Packers and then got rolled by them. Has that ever happened before, guys? So, yeah, last year with Dallas. Yep. So I think the Packers are they've definitely got a puncher's chance. I mean, they get that ground game rolling. Love can he can matriculate the offense, as they used to say. So I think the Packers have a chance. I'm picking the Eagles, but I think it's closer than most people think, especially if Hurts doesn't play.
Yeah. All
right. How about we got the commies at the Bucks? What do we got there, Nelson?
I like the Bucks in this game. I think they're again, they're playing well. Um, it's actually similar to the Texans Chargers game.
Mhm.
Um, but I like the Bucks a little bit more than the Commanders. So that's how I'm leaning as far as in like playoff pools and contests is that I like the Bucks at least playing 2 games.
And I think that this is the game that swings a lot of the pools, right? The way you outlook this, not only for this game, which I like. This is my upset special. I like Washington in this game, and what that's going to do, if I'm right, is trigger off a whole lot of different matchups here, including the Vikings, Rams. If the Vikings beat the Vikings won't be matching up with the Lions in round 2, like everyone is getting ready for and predicting. Including Dan Campbell. So the Commanders, I think, offensively will score at will on this Tampa Bay defense. I think this will be a high-scoring game both ways. I could see this being like a 31-28 type of game, but I'm going to pick this game as the upset here. I don't like the way what I saw from Tampa versus the Saints, barely getting by them that final week. And they're just dealing with a lot over there. And if Lattimore can contain Evans a little bit, I don't know. The only way Tampa, to me, has a lot of success here, they just run Bucky to death here.
That's the key.
And that's the way I see it. But I'm picking Washington in this game.
I mean, for me, originally, I thought it was going to be the Bucks. It all depends on their secondary. That game versus the Saints, I think they had like 4 guys in the secondary out. I think another guy got injured. So I need to see who's healthy, come like Thursday, Friday, who's really going to play. Because if they're going to pretty much all be out again, then I've got to swing it to Washington. I think Bucky Irving is the X factor here for the Bucks. New Orleans dominated the time of possession in that first half. And Bucky only had like 5 carries, and Bucky's just been a beast. So this one right now for me, it's got to come down to later in the week when I know the health of the Buccaneers secondary. Right now it's just 50-50.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll throw out. I think this is this is a Bucks team that can beat anybody and they can lose to anybody. Same thing with the Commies. They beat Philadelphia. They've got a lot going on right now. They're in Washington. Jaden Daniels is playing really well. But again, the Bucks. We were just talking about Baker and how he was playing lights out during the sprint round. And if that happens, they're going to be tough to stop. So this is a game I don't really have a strong lean on. I guess I'd say Bucks 55% or something like that. But I think this game can definitely go either way.
See, one thing I want to add, guys, with the Bucks, for me, like I look at the X factor with teams, and the Bucks have, okay, listen, they've lost games that they probably shouldn't have lost, but what impresses me is the games that they have won. They've beat the Lions. They manhandled the Commanders earlier in the year. They've beat the Eagles. They went to overtime with the Chiefs. Okay. And then they also beat, who am I thinking of? There was another playoff team that they played and beat. Chargers. So that's a lot of playoff teams.
They smoked the Chargers in that game.
Yeah. So you're talking about a lot of playoff teams: Eagles, Lions, Chargers, Commanders, and then going to overtime with the Chiefs. They lost at Arrowhead, but they went to overtime with it. So to me, that tells me this team can get up and play with the big boys. So that's why I have confidence, in them and with the coaching and everything. So I think that's a factor too, is having, playoff coaching experience.
Okay. Fair point.
All right. Sounds good. Last game, Vikings at Rams. What do you got, Nelson?
I thought hands down the loser of the Lions-Vikings game was going to also make a run in the playoffs. But man, oh man, that game biased me big time because I did not like how the Vikings looked, Dan. And I know you're going to hate this, but I thought the Rams made a huge mistake in resting their starters and not trying to go for that 3 seed, because I'm like, the way this is playing out, they're going to play the loser of the Lions Vikings. I want no part of playing Lions or Vikings. Give me the Commanders all day long. So, but the way I look at it now, the Vikings, the way they just couldn't do any. They moved the ball a little bit and then just settling for field goals, settling for 4th down, trying to score, couldn't convert anything into a touchdown. And then in the second half, their defense finally just, they broke. Not gave up, but just, they were done. They were toast. Mm-hmm. So I give the Rams a huge chance in this game. I think this is 50-50. I think the Rams
Vegas agrees with you, Nelson. No doubt about that. I was shocked when this spread came out. I woke up Monday morning, went on my site, I saw 1.5, and I was shocked. I thought the Vikings would be about a 5.5 point favorite, maybe even 6. Truth of the matter is, if that game Sunday night is Lions 35, Vikings 31, we wake up Monday morning to a Vikings giving 7 to the Rams probably. But I'm going to just say that it was a terrible game that Aaron Glenn just game planned the shit out of perfectly against that Vikings, and Darnold was his absolute worst. And was in a hostile environment, and everything just that could go wrong went wrong. And I'm going to try and judge the Vikings based on what I watched for the last 3 months and not one night against a really good team. I'm sticking with my thought that the Vikings are going to win this game. I don't think it'll be as easy. I think Stafford and with Puka, they'll move the ball and score some points here. But I can't see a Rams team that I didn't like all year long and struggling. I don't think that defense can contain Darnold and Jefferson and Addison and everyone. I think the Vikings win this game. I already put in a big bet on the Vikings in this game, and that's the way I'm going to see it.
All right. So, Chris, just so I can finish my thought, I'm going to go opposite of you and say the Rams are winning this game. I'm giving them the edge with McVay. I think he's the best head coach in the NFL. And I believe they know each other. They're very familiar with each other, him and O'Connell. And I think McVay is going to be able to add a lot as far as how to game plan. They now have it on tape with how the Lions played it. Okay. And I didn't like Darnold. He couldn't make the throw. Like, he couldn't make that big time throw, and he had receivers open. And in a big game like that, you got to be able to connect and make those throws. Stafford at quarterback, the experience. And I think the Rams defense, other than last week when they rested everyone, right? And they were playing some shitty teams, but the Rams basically were giving up single digits their last handful of games. So if you look back, teams are scoring 9, 6.
Shitty offenses though, Nelson. Yeah. Shitty offense. We can't compare that to the Vikings offense and the talent that they're bringing in.
I get it, but all I'm saying is against the shitty offense, they did what they were supposed to do. They completely shut them down and gave up single digit points. It's not like we're not talking about a defense here that's just garbage and even when they play an inferior offense, they're giving up 20 plus.
They were lucky to beat the Cardinals the week before in a game that meant the world to them. I mean, they got lucky. I mean, that was a hell of a pick.
That's the game that's sticking in my head too, Matt.
Here's my take on this game. This is the game that, like Chris, I bet it yesterday on the money line at minus 130. It went down to 125. I even saw a 122. In a loss, I think that was the best case scenario for the Vikings. If you got to find the silver lining that they lost the 1 seed, Sam Darnold was terrible. They had 4 first and goals. They should have had like 28 points at the half. It was the worst outcome they could have had. Aaron Glenn, props to him. They brought the pressure. They couldn't stop the pressure, and he was sailing that ball in the first half, underthrowing Addison in the second half. And I think that was the best thing for them. I think Kevin O'Connell is going to make the adjustments this time. That needs to happen here. I think this defense, as much as I love Stafford, I think this defense is going to get to him. And unless Kupp can be have this bounce back game, Puka's amazing and has just been doing it time and time again. I just really like the Vikings here. This is my game of the week. This is a team that I think, that loss, as bad as it looked, might be the best thing for them for their playoff run. They got, destroyed in a huge game on national TV, like pretty much the greatest game ever on like last week of NFL season. 14-2, teams, whatever the hell. I mean, so that's what I'm going.
Two other factors right here. Like, we treat this, we're looking at it, the Vikings got to go on the road. That game will be a home game for the Vikings. Every team that comes into the Rams Stadium and plays the Rams, it's a home game for them. The fans
and it's in a dome.
And it's in a dome. It's comfortable environment for Donald, all of them. I will say this to Nelson's point on liking the Rams here. Now that they saw the blueprint, that Rams defensive line has some monsters on it. And if they could create pressure and get into the backfield and make Donald have to hold the ball, that's how the Rams could blow this up and win here. But I just haven't liked this Rams team all year long. And I don't think that a team that's been a top 3 or 4 team in the NFL all year long goes on the road and blows their whole season up in losing that game.
Real quick, one last point on this game is I thought on Sunday night Jalen Naylor would be a bigger factor. I saw what Ricky Pearsall did to the Lions, that third receiver, and I think he's another guy that he's always getting open. You got to put so much on those top 2 receivers. He could be a difference maker too in this game. So I don't know. I'm all in on the Vikes here, and I think the Vikes have a big run.
Yeah, I am also in on the Vikings. I mean, sometimes you need a game to humble you, to get you back on track. I think that might have been the case for the Vikings. I mean, they won 9 straight or something like that going into this game. So, and the Lions are a good team. And basically what it came down to for me is Darnold came in just way too keyed up. I mean, he looked like he just went through an 8-ball of Coke or something before that game.
He really did, though. He really did.
He did. I mean, everything was wild high early, and the throws were there for him early. If he could have.
That Hawkinson play alone, that was huge.
Exactly. I mean, if he could have hit those plays, I think we're talking a whole different dynamic for the rest of the game. All of a sudden, the Vikings are playing with confidence. They're probably playing with a lead, and that's how games can turn on, little things like that, and then basically what happened was, Detroit realized that, the officials were not going to be calling, interference or holding that much in the defensive secondary, and they reacted. They adjusted. They kept mugging the Vikings receivers. The Vikings receivers didn't respond to that, and all of a sudden, you've got Darnold, trying to throw into really tight windows. He's holding the ball too long, which allowed the defensive line to get there. I mean, everything just kind of all of a sudden started snowballing on him, or 8-balling in the case of Darnold, and that's what happened. And I think that. Yeah, the Rams are going to look at that and they're going to say, okay, here's the game plan. But, Kevin O'Connell is also a smart coach. He's going to look at that and say, yeah, the Rams have to know this is the game plan. They're going to at least try to do the same things that Detroit was doing. And he's going to have answers because I think O'Connell, I agree. McVay is probably one of the best, if not the best coaches in the NFL right now. But I think O'Connell is right up there. I think he's really, really good. If you think O'Connell's not a top 5 coach, in the league, I think you're underrating them. So I'm going Vikings. I'd say about 70% on this. I think they get it right and get back to it. All right, so enough of that. There was my rant. Let's move on to round 2 real quick. Who do you have as your round 2 winners? We'll go quickly through this. Chris, what 4 teams do you have winning round 2?
Kansas. Well, I have the Texans playing the Chiefs over the Texans, Ravens upsetting the Bills in the AFC. And then I have Washington winning, going into Detroit, losing there. Vikings going into Philly and beating Philly.
All right.
I have the Chiefs versus the Chargers, and I think the Chargers knock out the Chiefs. And I got to go with Baltimore right now. Just that run game is just too much for the Bills. I'm hoping I'm wrong there. But, just as a fan of football and somebody that watches it, I think that's the Bills' weakness. If you have a physical run game and you add Lamar to Henry, I think that's too much, but hopefully I'm wrong there. In the NFC, it's tough because that Tampa Bay-Washington game, it's the health of that secondary. But let's say Washington wins. I'm pretty much with Chris. I got Detroit beating Washington and Minnesota beating Philly. So I'm the same with him there. But if it is Detroit, Minnesota, I take Minnesota to beat Detroit.
All right. I have Chiefs over the Chargers. I also have the Ravens over the Bills. I think that's going to be a fantastic game. Eagles over the Bucks, if that's the way it goes. But if the Vikings end up playing the Eagles, I'll take the Vikings, and then I'll take the Lions to beat whoever they are playing.
Okay. I'm with Maddie here. I think Chiefs are one and done. I think the Chargers are going to win and beat the Chiefs. And I got the Ravens over the Bills. I just like how that defense has been strong against the run all year, but now they've become really strong in the pass game. They got playmakers, so I like the Ravens. Unlike you guys, I'm going to go Rams over the Vikings, and I think they lose to the Lions in the next round. And I think that it's going to be the Bucks and Eagles, and the Eagles win.
Okay.
All right. And last but not least, who do we have in the Super Bowl, Matt?
Let's just go a little crazy here. Chargers, Vikings, Super Bowl.
Wow. All right. Matty Mo.
Wow.
Off the reservation.
I can't wait to start building these.
I was
going
to say that. We're all going to be all over the place.
Fucking chaotic.
And that's the story. And that's the story of.
Like that.
And that's the story of this year's playoffs, in my opinion, and all these fantasy contests. Is I think it's completely wide open. I think you can make a case for any of these games to go any different way, which when you plan out these fantasy playoff contests, you're trying to match up teams as you go. And I can't remember a year more chaotic than this, where even the fantasy players on each team, everybody can have a different opinion on who to play. So it is going to be wild. You're going to see a lot of different outcomes and lineups for everybody across the board. I have the Ravens beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, Lamar getting to the Super Bowl this year, and the Lions. I think it comes down to Lions-Vikings, and I've been on the Lions all year long. For whatever reason, I'll stick to the Lions. I'll stick to the Lions and over the Vikings. But like Matt, I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings pulled off.
I really hope we get another Lions-Vikings game.
Yeah, I think
somewhere in this playoff.
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome.
I got Lions-Ravens Super Bowl.
All right. I got the Ravens beating the Chargers and moving on to the Super Bowl, and I got the Eagles beating the Lions and moving on. So
Lamar Hurts.
We got Lamar Hurts.
Okay.
All right. And I've got Ravens over the Chiefs and the Lions over either the Eagles or the Vikings, whoever they end up playing.
Okay, so me and Dan have the same Super Bowl. And
Yep.
And the two Charger whores over here.
Well, we got Nelson's got Ravens too. So
no, that's true. Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting here. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Yep, for sure. All right, guys. Well, we're an hour into the show. We got a couple lineups to put together. I would guess we're going over an hour and a half here, but that's the breaks. So
100%, especially after Maddie threw that doozy in.
Yeah. I thought we would have had an hour and a half to talk about the fantasy playoff lineups, but as usual, we go off the rails. But
yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm
just going to go back real quick and go over the rules so that everybody understands the FFPC contest, and then we'll fill out that roster, and then we'll get into the NFFC contest, fill out that roster. Rules wise, it's pretty simple on the FFPC side. There are two different contests. They're basically the same contest. It's just two different entry fees, two different prize pools. The one we're going to do is a $200 per team, $500,000 grand prize, $1,387,750 in guaranteed prizes. They pay down to 850th place out of 7,500. It will fill, guys. So if you're going, maybe I'll get in Saturday morning or something like that. There's a pretty good chance you're going to miss your window. These things usually do fill up. It's normal FFPC scoring. There's no draft or anything else. It's just basically you're picking 12 players, right, out of 14 teams. You're picking a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 4 flexes, a kicker, and a defense. So you're going to end up fading 2 teams completely. So there are 2 teams that you won't have any players from. You can only have 1 player per team. That's it. So if you take Patrick Mahomes, that's your Chief. If you take Lamar Jackson, that's your Raven. So you have to figure out where you want to get different from everybody else. Rosters lock at the start of the first playoff game, so you can't. Unlike some other contests, you can't sit there and keep changing your roster on games that haven't started yet. Once the first game starts, rosters are locked for all the games. And basically, it's just every, FFPC scoring, but in the Super Bowl, it's double points. So that's exactly what it is there. Makes sense for everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's jump back into our roster here. And I've done these things for several years now. And last year in the second chance when they always run a second one, starting the second week of the playoffs, I finished in third place, I think it was, or tied for second and third. And I was just basically 1 player off of having the right roster. If I'd had Sam Laporta instead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, I would have won the whole thing. So it literally can come down to decisions like that. So where I like to start on these things is try to figure out what teams we want to fade completely. So what do you guys think as far as are there teams we just don't want any part of, or do you want to go ahead a different way?
I want no part of the Packers.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
I would.
God, Matt.
You go. Well, I was thinking I was kind of with Nelson. If we don't think the Packers are winning, if we think Buffalo's winning, do we really want Denver?
I think the 3. Let's sum it up like this. I think it comes down to obviously the 2 7 seeds and the Steelers as the 6th seed in that. So unless you have a spot for Josh Jacobs, I think that's the only Packer that we're considering for a running back spot. Steeler wise, I think I would fade the Steelers, believe it or not, and I just don't see who you would use as a Steeler.
Right.
I think they use Najee and Warren too much together. That one could have a decent game, but they kind of cancel each other out. And I've been saying it all year that Arthur Smith doesn't give a shit about getting Pickens the ball. So, he's look at last week. Like I just don't. I don't think like you need to have Pickens. He potentially could put up. Listen, he could put up a monster game against the Ravens and be one and done, and still be optimal in your lineup. But yeah, I mean that's same thing with Denver. Like I want no part of the running backs. The only guy I would consider is Sutton, but I think the Bills are moving on. So those are the.
That's
three
what it
teams.
comes down to, Nelson. Yeah. I think it comes down to: do you want Sutton or do you want Pickens?
All right. Well, we also can soft
or kicker or defense.
Yeah, we can soft fade two teams by using the kicker and defense. So right now we have I think 3 contenders for the hard and soft fades: the Packers, the Broncos, the Steelers. Who do you guys see as being like the other most likely fade? Somebody that we'd probably take a kicker or defense from.
That's a
tough one.
I mean, it depends.
Part of this.
If you believe the Chargers are winning, and we had to do a soft. I mean, Nico would be a guy I want to play, but
go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to figure out like what would be the other team that we're gonna maybe use a kicker from. Like the Texans have a really good kicker.
So I have a crazy. Yeah, I have a crazy outlook on this, and I'll just throw it out real quick. If you're not going to use Pat Mahomes as your quarterback, okay, what chief are you going to be looking at playing in this fantasy playoff contest with confidence? Okay,
well,
and
of course.
I'll tell you right now what I'm thinking, because this is what I wanted to talk about, because I have the Chiefs one and done. So I would play Chiefs defense or Butker.
That is my point. And that's my point here is if we're not using Mahomes and we don't think Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl, then the kicker and the defense for the Chiefs would be the way I would play it.
Yeah. And I will say this. If you look at tight end, because you need a tight end here in FFPC, and you look at the landscape of tight end and who the other players are of like eligible tight ends that could be somewhat decent. Like Dan, if you click on the tight end position, I think Kelsey is going to be like 80% plus owned in this contest, just for the simple fact that you're not going to play Goddard because you're going to play Saquon or Hurts or AJ Brown. You're not playing Laporta because everyone's going to play Gibbs, or they're going to pivot to Amon-Ra. You're not playing Andrews because everyone's going to play Lamar or Derrick Henry. So when you really look at it, like Hawkinson, no, you're going to play Jefferson, or you're going to play Addison, or if you want to get tricky, you play Aaron Jones. So when you really look at the tight end landscape, it's kind of ugly where everyone's going to default to Kelsey, and that could be like where we separate ourselves from the masses.
That's a great point, honestly, when you sit back and look at the whole tight end position. The only thing I would say to add on to that is if you wanted to get creative, again, when you look at the quarterback, if we're going to go the Josh Allen route for quarterback and not use Lamar, and you want to switch in and put a Josh Jacobs in a running back spot, what about Mark Andrews? Especially if Zay Flowers is going to miss the first week here, if you want to use Mark Andrews as a tight end here. But different rules for, we're starting here with this FFPC contest. Nelson, you're totally right. You have to use a tight end. And most people are going to look at Kelsey. So
let me add one more point, guys, because I always build this backwards. So I start from the Super Bowl and work my way backwards. Okay. And ideally, I usually want my quarterback in the Super Bowl. Okay. But I think there was a year where someone won it and they didn't have a quarterback. They had two position.
Yeah, there's been a couple years like that.
It's been a couple of years, Dan, right?
Yep.
You're probably more familiar with it, but I do recall that being the case. So the question I have for you guys is, I think we're a little bit different in who we have for our Super Bowl predictions. So for building this team, who do we have in the Super Bowl, and what players do we want in the Super Bowl?
Well, don't you guys all have the Ravens making the Super Bowl?
Yep.
I would say two players right off the bat here that we should start our lineup off with, being that, I mean, I know, listen, we're not all going to agree on who's in the Super Bowl. Every pick's going to be different, but do you guys not all agree as a whole that Lamar is the quarterback and Gibbs has a spot as a running back so far, or no?
I would agree with that.
I definitely in on Gibbs. I
definitely think it's Lamar. If you guys have three, you guys have them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So let's start off with that right there, having Lamar and Gibbs in as as our two right there.
Okay.
And build off of that.
I'm good with that.
Do we all have Saquon as a spot in here?
No, not me.
Okay.
Nope.
So to win this contest, again, I'm galaxy braining this, call it overthinking. I'm predicting Eagles Ravens. I want AJ Brown in the Super Bowl ×2 against the Ravens rather than Saquon, because my prediction is Saquon gets shut down in the Super Bowl and AJ Brown makes up the ground ×2. He might be like Saquon teams might be up there going through the playoffs, but I think AJ Brown can make that up rather than Saquon continuing to have a big game in the Super Bowl versus the Ravens run D.
All right, let's tentatively put AJ Brown in there.
I have a request for Ladd.
Okay.
As the Charger whore.
I'm good with Ladidi McConaughey.
Yeah, I think Ladd is going to be a very popular choice, and that's fine. I mean, you can eat a pretty good amount of chalk in these things. A lot of people try to get a little too crazy, I think, because you can have a ton of chalk. You only have to be different in one or two spots to make the difference. So, if you do all this and you bring in, like say a Cortland Sutton or a Marvin Mims or somebody like that is going to be super low owned, that's your pivot right there. And so, you don't have to worry about, we have too many chalky guys. Just make sure you've got pivots that are low, one or two pivots that are low enough owned. You're probably fine.
How about two guys in the same game? Do we both agree? I know this will be super chalky, but like to your point, Dan, do we both have Jefferson and Puka as two guys having spots on this team?
So ready, Chris? I like that thought. The only thing that I would change on it, if I'm building the team the way I'm predicting it, I'm actually going Hawkinson, because I need a tight end and I got to find a tight end. And I think that would be the guy that I would go with, because if you start looking at the tight ends, we start running out of options real quick with us fading the Chiefs. We're fading Kelsey, right? If we fade Kelsey rather than eat the chalk, then where do we go at tight end? Do we go Zach Ertz? Do we go Hawkinson? Or do we go Kincaid?
Can I interest you guys in Freiermuth versus the Ravens as the non-chalky pick? He's had good games against them. They're going to have to throw. We could use up a spot on the Steelers, which would then eliminate the Packers and Broncos. Just throwing that out there as a thought here. And we could still get a Jefferson in over a Hawkinson, which could be a drastic decision.
Yeah,
right there.
I haven't been super impressed with how Hawkinson's being used. I would throw out Zach Ertz as a possible tight end.
It's another one. That's a decent one, actually, Dan. Yeah,
you're not using their running backs, right? McLaren is literally the only guy that you can use on the Commanders, and he's probably going to be super chalky. So I kind of like the Zach Ertz call.
I actually really like that. I actually really like that call, Dan, to be different.
Yep,
and not use Hawkinson.
Yeah, that's one spot where we can get a little bit different. The other player I would consider on Washington would be Zacchaeus, but that just feels like a little bit too thin of a play.
Yeah, to me, it's Terry or Ertz, and I like the idea of Ertz, especially in this tight end here. Ertz can totally have a 6 for 65 and a touchdown, get eliminated, and maybe even get 2 games out of him.
Sure.
Yep. All right, so let's go back to running back because we got to get one more running back in, and then everything else is flexes, kickers, and defenses. I mean, I think we're probably, if as long as we're willing to get a little weird someplace else, James Cook really stands out to me.
I'm kind of with you on that, Dan. Because, I mean, who are we going to use from the Bills here? Like, are we going to take a receiver?
Yeah, I mean, you either got to go Cook or else you got to get a little weird and go with Shakir or something like that. But I'm not sure. I think Shakir is going to be sub 10% owned in this thing, just because of so many people are going to be on Cook or Josh Allen. I think that's gonna be like 90% almost of.
Well, actually, I mean, if you think the Bucks are winning, that would be the other possibility of going with Bucky.
Yep.
Bucky. I mean, for me, it'd be one of those two, but then you don't have Mike Evans, so.
I would go Bucky over Mike Evans, hands down.
Then, if that's the case, I think it's Bucky here. If you think Bucky's gonna, if you think Tampa Bay's gonna win. Mm-hmm. And I think they would have a shot if they played the Eagles. I think that's a tough game. They've beaten them once already this year, and
Yeah.
And if we're predicting Lattimore's supposed to play, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think
he's on Evans, and Evans gets shut down.
That's my thinking right there.
Yeah.
All right, so we got Bucky in there. That's good. Okay, so.
And we could still put James Cook in. It's not like we can go away from him.
We can still use Cook because we can, we can take whatever positions for these last 3 flexes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we still didn't put Jefferson in, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get Jefferson in.
Yeah.
Because we went different.
Yeah.
So I actually think that we should go Steelers defense and Fairbairn as the kicker.
Steeler D. Ooh, Steeler D, huh?
What about, do you think Steelers kicker, you think they could maybe, kind of make it a game like the first game against Baltimore?
Wait, Nelson, what happened to Chiefs defense?
Oh, yeah. So hold on. So
should be KC defense and
KC defense, Boswell at kicker.
And then you could put you could go
and then go Nico.
You could go Nico or Mixon.
All right. Let me throw in the defense and kicker and see what that leaves us.
Yeah. So it would be Chiefs and Boswell.
All right. So we got Chiefs and Boswell. So we're basically down to.
We're fading Broncos and Packers, correct?
Yeah.
Everyone agreed?
Yeah.
Yep. So we've got. That means we need a Texan and a Bill. I think having the Chiefs defense, between that and Ertz, that probably gets us weird enough where we don't really need to worry about chalk the rest of the way.
I would be all over a Nico James Cook to wrap up this team, in my opinion, unless anybody sees it differently.
I kind of see it that way. The only difference for me, it's really between Nico, who's the obvious one, or just Pickens having a blow-up game. They're going to have to – I think they're going to – the Ravens are going to score, and they're going to need to get him involved. But
I can see what Matt is saying.
Nico.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
But then you got to come off of Boswell as the kicker and go.
And you go Fairbairn.
Or you can put the Texan. Yeah, you go Fairbairn.
Yeah.
I mean that's the call. I'm fine with either one, but that would be the. You want to get a little weird, but I'm totally. I love Nico, so I'm totally cool with it.
Pickens has been so bad. I mean, I could see Nico totally going 7 for 120 and losing this 120 and a touchdown. I don't know if I could see it from Pickens anymore.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna go Pickens and then Cook.
This is actually easier than I thought.
Hey,
I mean, 4 guys trying to agree on a lineup. I thought this was actually pretty easy for this one.
Yeah.
Yep, I think so. Okay, so that would be our lineup then.
500K right there.
Okay.
125.
So we've
125 each. Nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Staying in
Yeah.
school works.
All right, so for those who are listening and not watching, we're going to go over this lineup. We have taken Lamar Jackson for a quarterback, Jameer Gibbs and Bucky Irving for our running backs, and then for our wide receivers, we have A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey. Flexes, we have James Cook, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, tight end Zach Ertz, place kicker Chris Boswell, and defense Kansas City. So our hard fades are the Broncos and Packers. Our soft fades are the Steelers and Chiefs, and everybody else is represented as one of the position players. Okay, looks good, guys.
And then also, like, as far as it's a fairly chalky team, which I don't think you need to get too crazy, but I think we would say A.J. Brown and Zach Ertz versus Kelsey are the two contrarian plays, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and the Kansas City defense, because most people are going to have Kelsey or somebody.
Sure.
So the fact that we're
that's what I'm saying. Fading Kelsey, not having him as our tight end,
Yep.
because the more I kept looking at this, for this particular contest, it just makes sense. Like Kelsey, he might be 90% because people are not going to want to go Laporta or Hawkinson or guys like that. Maybe Kincaid.
Yeah.
If you don't go Josh Allen, because if they decide they don't want to go James Cook and they want to add Kincaid at tight end. But I think Kelsey's going to be the one. So we're rooting for Kansas City comes off their bye. Kelsey does nothing, goes with Taylor Swift to Europe for some concert, right? Comes back hungover.
There you go.
Sounds about right. What do you think the breakdown of percentage between Lamar and Josh Allen is going to be in this contest?
I think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be close.
I think Allen more, because with Lamar, I think you can go Derrick Henry. A lot of people are going to feel comfortable going Henry. I don't think James Cook is like at that level. So I would think that Allen's going to be quite a bit more owned than Lamar.
I agree with that, and I think that's why I liked going Lamar instead of Josh Allen. You're definitely getting the lower owned quarterback out of the two. And what's crazy is that this is one of the biggest decisions you have to make in fantasy playoffs contest, is because they're going to play each other in round 2, Lamar and Allen. So one of you, whoever you decide, isn't even making the conference championship game.
Yep, exactly. So it's pick one or the other.
Yeah.
All right, should we move over to the other contest?
Sure.
Do it. Let's do it.
All right. Let me get that set up real quick.
Really is a lot of crazy decisions and in this year's fantasy playoff contest.
Yep. Hopefully everybody can see this. It's a little bit tough to see, I know, but it's really hard to make this any bigger. Without, I can take. Let's do this. Let's maybe. Well, no, that's not.
While you're doing that, Dan, I'm going to run through the rules here. Play NFFC. We have 2 price points here. The guys over there, we have a $200 price point. Overall winner gets $150,000, as well as a lower price point of $50 per entry that you could play for, and $50,000. So 2 different price points, same game. You choose. The rules are obviously a lot different. This one is 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers / tight end positions, and the 5th spot is a flex spot, as well as a kicker or a defense. Rules being here that as you go on, the points double in the second round, triple, and then quadruple for the Super Bowl here. So Those are the NFFC playoff contest rules. Always a fun contest. Always a lot of strategy involved in this one.
And Chris, just the bye teams get double that second week. So
The
if you don't
bye
start
team,
them,
correct.
Yep.
Correct.
If you take a player the first week.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a Chief or a Lion, basically, if you have a Chief or a Lion that getting a 0 here in week 1, and we're all going to have that in our lineups, most likely, fade if you dare. Come week 2, whatever Lion or Chief you have, they're getting double the amount of points. So it's not a smart idea to fade those two teams, just thinking like, oh, they're not playing in week 1. I don't want to take a 0. Come week 2, you can definitely shoot up the leaderboard based on those players.
Yep.
2 quick things on this contest that I always say. One, for years, everybody always just thinks it's easier. The smart play is to have one AFC quarterback, one NFC quarterback in your lineup and hope that they go X4 and play in the Super Bowl. I've learned and seen through the years that's not necessarily the way to play it. You can win this contest any which way possible. My thing in this contest, I think, is the smartest move is make sure you have spots that are going to definitely be open up in week 2 to hook up with your quarterback out of the wide receiver, tight end positions.
And that's what that strategy right there is what gets you to rack your brain, and where I think we're gonna take the most time in is of figuring that out. Because again, same thing with this contest. I work backwards from Super Bowl and decide like how I want like my 4X, 3X, 2X guys and how I want to work it.
Yep.
I won this contest, but it's been years ago. And what I can tell you is I always believed in you need one quarterback AFC, one quarterback NFC, and that hasn't been the case. And that's part of the reason why I haven't been able to repeat in this contest. So the thought is, whatever your prediction is for the NFC, if you, let's say we predict Lions, okay? And instead of having Goff, let's say you want Gibbs or you want a Monra, okay, ×4, ×3, and then you want Goff, you can actually go Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, okay, because you're guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but both should play 2 games, but you're almost guaranteed based off of how we're predicting the playoffs. They're going to play each other in the second round, and then one's going to get eliminated, and then that's when you add the NFC quarterback. At least that's how I'm going to play it this year on my own teams.
Exactly. I was going to say the same thing, Nelson, that if you want to go with the 2 most popular quarterbacks in Allen and Lamar, you will drop off if you want to build a team that way. Definitely. And another strategy that I've learned in these past years playing this contest is you might want to put 2 quarterbacks that, up against each other in the first round, clear a spot. Get the points out of the 2 of them in a high-scoring game. Example here this year that sticks out to me is Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield playing up against each other. Take that high, hope it's a shootout. You're automatically losing one of them for round 2. Now you can bring in a Lamar or a Josh Allen, okay, and have an X2. Or if you just want to play one of them, if you feel confident. Just say to flip this on another strategy wise, say you feel real confident that the Vikings are going to beat the Rams, but it's going to be a real high scoring game. And you love Lamar to go to the Super Bowl. Well, you put Lamar in at 1 quarterback spot. You put Matt Stafford in at a 2nd quarterback spot. This is hypothetical. I'm just saying.
Sure.
You take Stafford's points, and your strategy only gets blown up if the Rams win. But you take Stafford's hopefully 30 to 35 points. You get him out of the way, and now you bring in your Lamar versus a Goff while you already have Gibbs as an X2 or St. Brown as an X2.
Correct.
So that's another strategy that I started implementing the last couple of years here.
No, and that's just quarterback. So that's what I'm saying. Once we start digging deep into this contest, it you got to write shit down
Yeah.
and
Oh,
really
yeah.
map it out. Because here's the other thing, Matt, I'll give you an example. We like the Chargers to move on, okay? But if I'm going, let's say we go Lamar, Josh Allen, right? And we say we want how do I put this? Let's say we want the chart. We're predicting Chargers moving on. We might not want to go McConkey. We might want to go Nico because we're hoping for a good game out of Nico, but one and done to free up a wide receiver spot in our lineup to go with our like quarterback or however we're gonna play it out. Because
all right, but guys, to that point, what Charger would you continue going? Like you guys are in a real predicament, in my opinion, loving the Chargers to play 2 or 3 games here, because to me, the Chargers here, if you're going to put Ladd in to start, which I think that's consensus, if you like the Chargers, the first game here, unless, hey, you want to get real crazy, you want to go sub 5% on Justin Herbert, that's on you guys.
I think Herbert's the other playoff if you want to do that. But Chris, just getting back to your point, I'll definitely have one of these with Lamar as quarterback and Sam Darnold as the other quarterback, because I think it is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Darnold's going to advance, and I think they could make a serious run to the Super Bowl. So just getting back on that one.
Okay. There's
especially in NFFC with the 6-point touchdowns.
All right. Well, where do we want to start here? Do we want to?
This contest is definitely a lot more strategic because of the extra quarterback.
Right.
And I'll throw out this, guys. I'll start with this because we could start 100 different ways. To me, it comes down to picking a game and putting 2 wide receivers versus each other to then open up the contest as we go along. And I have 3 candidates for that. The 3 obvious ones are Puka and JJ, Ladd and Nico, and Terry versus Evans. Okay? I would break up my wide receivers with at least having 1, if not 2, of those combinations in there, so I can lose 2 of them after week 1. Okay, that's. I'll start at that.
I like Puka and JJ the best out of it, and then Nico and Ladd probably second. McLaurin, Evans probably third.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with Dan on that.
I'm with
I
Dan.
think we all agree. We all agree on that.
The other thing that I was going to add is I don't think we need to get crazy with the Ravens. It's either Lamar or Henry. And the way I look at it is I want Lamar times 4 in the Super Bowl rather than Henry, because I'm predicting the Eagles, very good run defense. Maybe it's the Lions, very good run defense. Or maybe it's the Vikings, very good run defense. So I don't want Henry times 4 against those run defenses. I rather have Lamar. So I think Lamar's an easy pick.
So
also,
let's say Lamar,
Puka, and JJ. Dan, I think you could lock in to start this team.
All right. So we got those locked in.
Go.
All right.
Okay.
Now we got to figure out where we go from here. So
is Gibbs? Are we just playing the chalk game with Gibbs on this one to start?
Gibbs might be 100% owned because you need 3 running backs in this format.
That's what I'm saying. I think that is the guy who's locked in.
I think Saquon's going to end up being
and he's the
super
second.
chalk.
Yeah, I think to be different than the FFPC contest, Nelson, I think Gibbs and Barkley will be highly owned. Gibbs a lot more than Saquon because people will get creative and want, Jalen Hurts in there as one of their quarterbacks and hope that he goes X4 injury, concussion aside right now.
Yep.
So we have Gibbs and we have Barkley in.
Right.
Okay.
Who's got the better matchup? Dobbins or Bucky versus Evans Ladd?
So for me, I love Bucky in this first game. And if they play 2 games, I would want Bucky especially
All right, so
again
you
Nelson,
like
like
Bucky
you're
Ladd.
saying with the running backs.
So you like Bucky Ladd rather than Dobbins Evans?
100%
Me
I
too.
think so.
on both fronts.
Yep.
On both fronts, yeah,
All right, so I'll put in
So
Bucky.
there's the 3 running backs, right?
exactly.
There's no other running back, right? That we would consider.
No, I mean, listen, it's the same ones that we talked about earlier. People are gonna throw Josh Jacobs in there. People are gonna go and throw Joe Mixon in there on some to use as a Texan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming this is like a Jaden Daniels we throwing in a quarterback here. With the way this team is shaping up.
Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels?
Yes, or Josh Allen, if you want to do that, because they'll do the matchup.
I feel like, guys, let me just throw this one out with Josh Allen. If we're thinking along the lines, I think if we put Josh Allen in here, this is a real chalky playoff lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think this is going to be very.
And we're
listen,
not clearing off a quarterback spot. More than likely, we're not clearing off a quarterback spot for Goff if we want to go that way.
This is my thought process, because I'm going Lamar, Josh Allen on a majority of my teams that I'm going to be doing, because my thought process is I want to add a Monra, next. So if he makes it to the Super Bowl, let's say I want to build I'm predicting Lions Ravens, for example. I'm going to add a Monra who would be ×3 in the Super Bowl, and then when the Ravens and Bills meet, we're losing 1. I'm predicting it to be the Bills. So then that's when I would add Goff in place of Allen, and he would be ×2 in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we can play
I
this
just
one
kind
like
of wonder
that.
because the thing is the Detroit passing game kind of gets spread around so much. Maybe Goff at 3x in the Super Bowl might be the better way to play it. Is that crazy?
It's not crazy at all. No, not. I think it's open for anything, for all these scenarios. That's what makes it so hard to come to a consensus on this lineup. Because here's the other thought: if we go Jaden Daniels, I like that thought, but it goes against what we want to accomplish if the Commanders move on and beat the Bucs.
Well, this would be a lineup, and each playoff contest you build here in the NFFC, you have to plan out the games and have for me, if I put Jaden Daniels in here, again, to my point, I'm hoping that the Bucs win. That's the way I want to see the game play out. I want to see Lamar and Jaden put up their 35s and Tampa beat Washington. And now I clear out my quarterback spot with Jaden and I take the points. So if that's the way we're playing this out, then you got to start thinking it that way. All right, Tampa beat Washington in that game. Now Tampa is going to Philly in week 2. Who do we like in that matchup, right? And then
you always have the ability to put Goff in if you think the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. Or we have JJ, and if you're like me and I think the Vikings could possibly get there, you could put a Sam Darnold to pair up with him.
I like that. Yeah.
I think, since we've already got Bucky in there, we're already kind of shading towards a Tampa Bay win. So throwing Daniels in just kind of, is
I don't
that
mind
same narrative.
Here's the thing. I don't mind with the Bucs losing because then I replace Bucky with Derrick Henry.
True. Yeah, I guess and so if you have Washington, if Washington wins that game, then they're almost certainly going to be playing Detroit, in which case, actually, Jaden Daniels might not be that bad of a play.
That's a quick point, Nelson, to your Baltimore thing. You're right with that. If we lose Bucky and then we replace him with Henry, now you're kind of going against what you're trying to accomplish here with Lamar hooking up with a wide receiver for week 2 if we have the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Now, how do you win this contest with, Lamar, Henry? If Henry runs it in, you're not getting any Lamar points, vice versa. But if Zay Flowers comes back with a healthy week 2, you also have the ability now to go Lamar, Zay Flowers. in there, or Lamar Andrews,
or Bateman.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bateman's been pretty damn good lately.
Bateman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like those. So here's the thing. If you go back on the season, Lamar and Henry have coexisted and put up monster games.
True.
So I don't necessarily mind. Let's just say Ravens make it, right? So you got Lamar times 4, Henry times 3, and then you go Bateman, Flowers, or Andrews times 2, and then the other receiver that you want times 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a way to play it. If any offense you could survive with, the first 2 weeks getting a running back and a quarterback, it's definitely the Ravens with Lamar.
Yeah, Henry and Lamar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is with the flexes, I mean, even if we don't open up a running back spot, there will still be a spot with that one extra flex where we could put in an extra, if we wanted to carry 4 running backs in the second round, we could do that.
What do you? I know you guys are predicting Eagles out quickly. Obviously, I'm predicting Eagles in the Super Bowl, so I'm building teams to try to have Hurts times 3 after Barkley. I'm going to build teams, with AJ Brown, stuff like that. So at quarterback, what are you guys thinking as far or like for Eagles player in the next round? Are you just going to say Saquon and fade Eagles?
No. Well, I mean, again, if this plays out the way we're hoping with Jaden Daniels, then I'm going to like the Eagles even more because then Tampa Bay Washington round 2 will go to Detroit. Minnesota would go to Philly, and I'd be on Minnesota. So at that point, I'd be soft fading Philly, to go out like that.
Okay.
The right way to play this, honestly, the easiest way to play this is to slot Josh Allen in at quarterback. But I think we want to get a little different with this lineup, and go with a different quarterback.
I think we go a little different and, make that move there because it's going to be super chalk but whatever, if that's what you guys want.
Okay.
I like the Jaden idea for this team.
I'm open to anything only because a majority of my teams are going to be Allen Jackson. So I'm okay.
Yeah, let's play this differently.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Always good to get a little weird from what else you're doing. Okay, so now we have one more wide receiver, tight end, a flex, and then our kicker and our defense.
So we used up all 6 NFC teams, and there's no Packer so far in this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we're going to do same as FFPC probably. No Bronco, no Packer, I guess.
Fade the Packers for sure, yeah.
Unless we stick in a Packers kicker, that's possible. I could see. I would bring up to nominate Nico again for that last wide receiver spot here, and kill 2 birds with 1 stone and open up 2 spots at the wide receiver position for the next week.
Yeah, I
don't know how you guys feel about that.
And I think probably what we're saying with our narrative is we might end up not putting in a chief at all here.
No, I wouldn't not put any chief in there. I would have a chief.
But if we think they're going to be one and done,
that's the question. You really get egg on your face if the Texans beat the Chargers in this opening week, because there's no way the Texans are going into Kansas City and winning. And now you got an automatic X2 chief that you're passing on, as well as an X3 the following week because they're in the AFC Championship game. I know that this show is we're all Chief haters, Mahomes haters, and it's showing now. But
I think Worthy actually works for this team because if in round 2 it's the Chargers and the Chiefs, one of them, is going on.
All right, so let's say you put Worthy in.
You knew Worthy was getting in one of these lineups. You knew it.
So you put Worthy in. He's locked in. So next week he's times 2. He's locked in. It's not an open spot.
Right.
That's the problem right there, Matt. And that's why you can't use a skill position player on Kansas City unless you are convinced and you're dedicated to putting Mahomes in at the top and building it out that way. Because Worthy could bomb and give 6 points. And then on top of it, if you don't have Mahomes to play with him, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
I thought we were going with Nico there, right?
Right. Well, we're just talking this out loud. I'm just saying the reason Nelson just said is, and he's right, is if we're building this team out going forward, there's really, no point in putting in a Chiefs skill player, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't have in the Chiefs defense or Chiefs kicker to possibly play 2 games here, or at least one.
The only argument there was if we had Nico, Ladd, and Worthy, or say you want Kelsey, whoever, then you're getting, 2 out of those 3 guys at 2x. You know what I'm saying? That's how I was looking at it there. You're going to guarantee that, and hopefully both of them blow up week 1, and whatever your choice is. If it was, say, Kelsey, if you, like you're saying, if the Chiefs win that game and the Chiefs go back to the Super Bowl, then you at least have somebody there.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah. But I think we were playing this more as a Chiefs fade because everybody had them going out early.
Well, here's the deal. This team, if the Chiefs move on and go to the Super Bowl, this team is not winning with us putting Mahomes times 2 or times 1
right
in the lineup. That's the issue.
You basically have to determine, do you like the Chiefs? Do you like the Ravens? Do you like the Bills? And get the Super Bowl participant from the AFC correct with the quarterback at least X3.
Because here's the thing,
out of
Matt,
those
ready?
3 guys.
If we put Worthy in, right, that locks up a spot. The following week, we have a Jack Lamar team. We're either going to go Henry for Bucky, okay, or we're going to put Andrews or Bateman in at wide receiver for either Puka, Jefferson, McConkey, or Nico, because it's going to open up 2 spots. So it's going to be one of those. So we're building it Baltimore. We're never adding a Kansas City Chief unless it's like we decide to add, like if we have Worthy already, we might add kicker, Chiefs kicker, Chiefs defense. And if they go to the Super Bowl, this team's not winning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we also, I think, need to get a Bill in somewhere here. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, so
well, if we're going away from I mean, I think James Cook is the play here at flex. I think looks pretty solid. Or no?
Okay.
I mean, you gotta like him as a 10-point favorite. You like him as a 10-point favorite. In the cold weather, he could put up a really solid week 1 game, and then you come in and replace Jaden Daniels next week with Josh Allen X2 while filling in one of your 2 wide receiver spots that you're losing with Amon-Ra, right? And now you have Lamar and Josh Allen going against each other in the second week, losing one of them, and then if the Lions keep moving on, now you have Gibbs X3, Amon-Ra X2. Now you come in with Goff X1 in week 3, and you have 3 Lions in down the board.
I think you got to add, if Daniels is out next week, you have to add Goff. I don't think you can add Allen because
I agree.
You would do it okay.
You're going to be behind the Allen Lamar teams that are times 2.
That's solid. That's also you know what? That's a good point because we're all in on Lamar and the Ravens. So
So
but now at this point, you're fading you're fading Bills and Chiefs.
Real quick too, though. But look at Sam Darnold before last week. Forget something that ever happened right now. This guy was putting up what? I was doubting him at the midway point. He's been putting up 30 plus for the last few weeks, like just crushing. I mean, you got JJ just to be different in that aspect. If you think the Vikings are going to go, it gives you that option as well.
Yep.
Definitely possible right there, Matt.
I'm definitely not condoning fading the Bills because it's nice having a Bills player times 2. but you do want to have enough open spots, which I think we're doing that by having Puka, Jefferson, and then if we go McConkey, Nico, it guarantees us two
Okay,
open,
do that.
Okay.
That just
two
makes it
open
easy.
slots.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's the only reason I brought up Amon-Ra for week 2 is because you're going to need some wide receivers to start coming in that you like a lot in week 2. And I totally get you want to start matching up your Super Bowl matchups and bring in Goff week 2. That's at the expense of one of those really good wide receivers in Amon-Ra at the top of everything. Nelson, you did mention that, Gibbs and Amon-Ra come in with Goff in the
Goff
third
times
week.
2. Yes.
Yeah. So
Because if you play it out and you say, okay, if Commanders win, all right, Bucky's gone, we add Derrick Henry in the running back slot. Makes sense to me. If the Bucks win, okay, Jaden Daniels is gone, add Goff.
Yep.
I agree with that because it at least gives you the option of J-Mo, who's really been playing fantastic as well.
Yeah,
and
I
it's a
agree.
mismatch too.
Yeah, J-Mo, I think, is a decent pivot off of Amon-Ra if you wanted to go that way. Like if you felt you needed to make up points, and you go, if we go Gibbs, Goff, and then week 3 we're adding somebody, then we're only talking about, at most a 2-game sample where the difference between Amon-Ra and J-Mo is going to matter. Right. And I can't see J-Mo outscoring him for 3 or 4 games, but 1 or 2 games. I think it's possible. So at least it leaves that open.
Okay. And then we're down to the kicker and defense, which Chiefs defense, I think we all agree you want in there out of the teams remaining. It seems obvious to me.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you think it's going to be a snow game, I could see going with the Broncos defense. That would be a way to go, and then you could go Chiefs kicker.
I think, to me, it's all about these one and done kicker defenses. It's trying to get the defense and the kicker that are going to score the most points and be one and done.
Yep.
And it's going to come down to like one of these random defenses is going to have like a pick 6 or a fumble for a touchdown or a kick return, and that's going to make the difference.
Well, I mean, do we have him? We don't have any Eagles, right?
No, we got Saquon.
Oh, yeah,
We got Saquon, of
so,
course.
but I'm saying, Packers. So, like, say we think, what if like Jaden Daniels? Not Jaden Daniels. What if Hurts doesn't play? And they're going with the Tanner guy, or even they're going with a backup quarterback. Is that?
I would switch it. If that was the case, I would switch it over the weekend. Then, Matt.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
doubt. That's not a bad idea right there. If Hurts is out,
I think you go Kansas City, and you could always put Kansas City as the kicker if you want to keep that or whatever for the 2 play. Switch it off and put the. I think it at least gives you that option.
I don't think there's any advantage here when you're talking about the kickers. You got the Steelers playing outside in bad weather versus the Ravens probably this weekend, cold weather. Packers doing the same thing in Philly. So it's really just about getting lucky here. I could see the Packers moving the ball a little more than the Steelers maybe. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. It's probably close there. I wouldn't put in the Broncos kicker versus the Bills.
No, I wouldn't put in the Broncos kicker either.
I think the Steelers kicker is the best kicker, and especially in these conditions in January. I think he's proven that time and time again.
All right. So
I'd lean Steelers.
So we want to put Chiefs defense, and then
Steelers. Okay. And if something happens where Hurts doesn't play, then you can switch out it up. Chiefs kicker, and then you can go, Packers defense.
Packers Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
All right. Let's read through this team. We have
save it, Dan. Dan, don't forget to save it there, Dan. We're locked in.
Oh, the contest is over.
Oh, that's great.
Shit. It's over already.
Oh, that's just great. Did we win?
125 each.
We better screenshot this.
Yeah,
that's weird. Yeah, that's true. I wrote it down, so I'll put this team in later. I don't know why it's saying that.
I don't know why it's saying that either.
Maybe it's so bad that they said it's over for us.
Yeah, you guys, you
Save your
don't
money.
even get the chance to compete.
I mean, here's the thing. If the Chiefs, move on and Mahomes and the refs get their way, then both our teams are toast.
Yeah.
We're betting on going against a three-peat.
Yep. You guys are comfortable with that?
I mean, would you really be surprised if Mahomes and the Chiefs go with the Super Bowl again now that the team's getting healthy? They have his receivers back. If the Texans beat the Chargers, this team walks into the AFC Championship game hosting it again.
I think Baltimore and Buffalo. I mean, as a Bills fan, I'd rather face the Chiefs than face the Ravens. I think they can beat them. I think the Ravens with that run game and Henry with Lamar make it such a difficult for their defense.
Either way, I still think Mahomes has an advantage on both these teams. He has Allen's and Lamar's number, and
I mean, look, Allen, except for the first playoff game he played in Kansas City years ago, has been amazing versus the Chiefs. He's not the reason they've lost the last few years.
No,
I mean, their defense and their head fucking coach.
Yeah, defensive breakdowns for sure.
And the number one thing at all this is the Chiefs don't have to beat both Allen and Lamar. They got to kill each other first before whatever's left over going to Kansas City for the third week. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting playoff. And, like I said, in this contest, if you don't have Mahomes, if you're not putting Mahomes in, what Chief do you really use?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's read off this team real quick for those who are just listening. We have Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels at quarterback, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Bucky Irving at running back. Our wide receiver tight ends are Puka, Justin Jefferson, Lad McConkey, Nico Collins. Flex is James Cook. Kicker is Steelers. Defense is Chiefs.
Nice.
All right.
And to all listeners out there, don't be copying this team. We're not splitting the prize with you, all right?
Yeah.
Create your own shit. Come up with your own.
I better not see any.
We'll know who you are.
Trades.
Yeah, we know who you are. We'll see it in the standings.
Yep, exactly. Now, the thing is, you can copy us the first week, but after that, we're going to be doing this, more in the dark
Dan.
too. So, you're gonna have to get really, really lucky if you want to, tail us this entire way. So, all right,
Go.
all right. So we got another playoff team. We're almost at 2 hours here, so we'll wrap this up. Again, one more contest if you're interested in it. Fast Draft Super Slam. It's fun. It's easy. Only $10 to enter. There's no draft, no salary cap. 6 wide receiver, running back, tight ends rostered, and then you just pick your players, and you can set your own multiplier. So you get a 2x, a 1.75x, a 1.5x, and a 1.25x. You can assign to 4 of the players. So it's really easy, really fun, really fast. You can fill a team in less than a minute. If you haven't done Fast Draft, it's in the Apple and Google Play stores, and if you sign up with my promo code Dan, you'll get a free match up to $25. So you can take your own $25, the free match of $25. You can turn that into 5 entries in the Super Slam. So nice and fun and easy. So and this is kind of it, guys, for 2024. It looks like I'm going to be off in the tropics for a month. You guys going to be doing anything else? Anything we need to know about?
I'm going to be shoveling snow, Dan, while you're in the park.
Yeah, Dan. Why don't you just shovel that in our ass right there? Jesus. Way to rub it in, Dan. How do I get your life?
Yeah, well, you gotta get got to get things in order. And be a little older.
I gotta get my shit straight. Is that what you're saying, man? I gotta get my shit straight so I can hang out in the tropics for a month.
That's right.
I think we gotta win one of these contests.
Once we win this contest, Dan, the 3 of us are gonna show up in the tropics with you.
Yeah.
Nelson's gonna throw his snow in your face.
I could just see that. Nelson carrying 2 suitcases of snow.
Shit.
Let's do it.
All right, boys. Good luck.
All right.
Yes, good luck,
luck.
everybody. Everybody,
luck.
thanks for tuning in this year.
Yeah,
we appreciate it. We will be back in 2025, so don't worry about that. We'll be ready to ramp up, and we'll probably get started a lot earlier in 2025 than we did in 2024.
They're signing us to a huge contract extension.
That's right. Yep.
We overexceeded our potential, and we're holding out. We're holding out.
I'm
right.
pulling my Jamar Chase card.
Yeah, I didn't say where we would be showing up, just that we'll be showing up.
Oh, there you go. Playing hardball.
That's right.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in with us, and good luck to everybody in your playoff challenges, championships, whatever. We really appreciate your support all year, and we'll see you next year.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.